Okay, everybody, 10 Tampa Bay Chief Meteorologist Bobby Deskins here on our Saturday morning. And boy, oh boy, do we've got a system on our hands now. Look at this. This is, well, obviously it's Fiona. Fiona right now basically has winds of 60 miles per hour, but you can see the structure is just so much better looking. A lot less shear on the system first thing this morning. It's moving off towards the west this morning at about 13 miles per hour, and the pressure is down to about 1,009 millibars. So it's gaining a little bit of strength. And you can see it just looks a whole lot better, right? So let's get down in here right now. You can see it's back out over here. This is where it is now, or where it was. And then you can see the forecast. These are all forecast models here, at least the little dots. But this area that you see here in red is where they think we'll get 60 mile per hour winds or higher. And then if you notice right up here, you see the purple there? We could be looking at the chance for some hurricane force winds there, southwestern parts of Puerto Rico and into, well, just western part of the island. So the bottom line here is that we have a strengthening system. It is a little bit further to the south from where it has been. It just kind of came further west than what the initial track had called for. And you can just see this picture. I mean, it just looks more like a tropical system, right? And should become a hurricane. That's, you see the ones here, that's a category 1 hurricane. This would be by Sunday night. You can see Monday morning, Monday night. Some models saying a Cat 2, some models saying a Cat 3. Most of the strengthening is going to occur once it gets north of the islands here. Here's the Turks and Caicos over here. So you can see some models say Cat 3, some say Cat 2. The yellow that you see here, that is the track from the Hurricane Center essentially. So you can see where they're thinking that it is going to make the turn. So that's good news right there. But I tell you what, that is that's a good looking system considering all the shear that this thing's been under over the last few days. The center's been completely devoid of convection at times, but that's not the case right now. It actually looks really well. So let's get over and let's start talking about some of the models. I wanted to start off today and go over who has the watches and the warnings, and I'll show you this, but a hurricane watch is now in effect for Puerto Rico. Okay, that includes Vieques and Culebra, the south coast of the Dominican Republic from Cabo, basically Cabo Engano, all the way over towards Cabo Quasadero. I don't know how to say that one, sorry. And basically the north coast of the island as well, too. Now, tropical storm warnings. Hurricane watches means we might get hurricane force winds in those areas, Puerto Rico and eastern parts of Dominican Republic. Tropical storm warning means we expect to see tropical storm force winds in St. Martin and Guadeloupe, which is actually getting better. Puerto Rico at least, right? U.S. Virgin Islands, yes, 50s, 60s. British Virgin Islands, a little less than that, but still some decent wind. And then it continues. Okay. Let's talk about where the winds are right now. And I hope you can see this a little bit. I want to zoom in. There's St. Croix. We've had winds basically in the 20s with gusts in the upper 20s into the 30s. Hasn't been bad, right? You get up towards St. John. St. John here has had winds basically in the 20s and 30s with a couple of gusts over 40 miles per hour. We've got this little buoy here just south of St. Thomas, and that's showing gusts just over 40s, but that was earlier this morning. You see things have calmed down just a little bit, but the system is still moving by to your south, right? Now, look over here in the southeast coast of Puerto Rico. We already have winds, sustained in the 20s to mid 20s, but gusts well into the 30s. And that's just going to pick up. And I think eventually, you see over here, I mean, it's really, really quiet here in southwest Puerto Rico right now, but that's all going to pick up and the weather will go downhill, as you can imagine. San Juan, a little breezy just because the lower pressure's there. Nothing terrible right now. Winds are in the 20s with some gusts in the 30s occasionally. But again, all of this is going to pick up. That's about it now. And most areas are actually fairly calm outside of the storm. Here's a look at the track from the Hurricane Center. And I want to start with the wind field right now. So you can see that the tropical storm force winds are still out here at St. Kitts, okay, Montserrat as well. We don't have sustained tropical storm force winds, which means in the 40s. In the Virgin Islands yet, just like I showed you, right? The British Virgin Islands look good as well, too. This right here, this is winds of greater than 60 miles per hour. And it's just to the north and the east of the center, but that's out over open water. Most of this wind is. Okay, but this is all, you can see the direction this is moving. And so this is all going to be moving this direction. This is, what are we looking at here? Let's see if I can make this a little bit bigger. This is 1 o'clock this afternoon with 65-mile-per-hour winds forecast. That's right in this area here. Now look what happens by tonight. Now you've got 70-mile-per-hour sustained winds. This is overnight tonight, about 1 in the morning our time, Eastern time. So that's this location right here. And that means you're going to have tropical storm force winds extending out all over the U.S. Virgin Islands, the British Virgin Islands, all over Puerto Rico. Again, overnight tonight into tomorrow morning. And then you're likely going to have some 60-mile-per-hour winds down here on the southeast coast. And there's going to be a small section in there that's going to have winds closer to 70. I think most of that will be just offshore. But so you're talking 50, 60-mile-per-hour winds over Puerto Rico overnight tonight. All right, now let's go to tomorrow. This right here is 1 o'clock Sunday afternoon, tomorrow afternoon. So the center is now southwest of Puerto Rico, and the forecast actually at that particular time calls for still 70-mile-per-hour winds. Both Puerto Rico and Hispaniola have those hurricane watches because it will be close. What I've also overlaid on here is the arrival of those winds. So let's take Puerto Rico. Well, let's just start. Let's go with the British Virgin Islands. Today, 2 p.m., probably around noon, we're going to start to see these winds move into the area. What time it is? It's almost noon now there. So it's a little bit behind. But through the afternoon hours, the next 3 hours or so, I expect the winds to get to tropical storm force, especially in the U.S. Virgin Islands. 8 o'clock tonight, that's eastern Puerto Rico. 2 a.m. tomorrow morning, it's moving through central Puerto Rico, over almost to Mayagüez. And certainly before sunrise, almost all of Puerto Rico should have tropical storm force winds. All right, and again, the highest winds will be down here along the southern coast of Puerto Rico. San Juan, not as much wind, but obviously going to be windy. And then continue going up to over top of Dominican. Now we're talking Sunday night into Monday morning. The forecast at that time is for a hurricane with 75-mile-per-hour winds. So you've got Sunday afternoon, a tropical storm with 70-mile-per-hour winds. You've got Sunday night into Monday morning, a hurricane. And then Monday afternoon, a hurricane. Tuesday afternoon, the forecast right now for Monday night and the Tuesday morning is still a hurricane with 75-mile-per-hour winds. But when this thing moves up, let's go all the way out here. I mean, they're talking 90-mile-per-hour winds later in the week. Now, at that point, you can see it's basically offshore. But the Turks and Caicos are going to get a little brush with this as we get into Monday afternoon, Monday night, and the Tuesday morning. But then by Tuesday and Wednesday, Tuesday evening and Wednesday, you see it's moving out to sea. That's the forecast right now from the Hurricane Center. All right, let's talk models. Thank goodness the models appear to be keeping this curve going, right? So that looks good. And almost every model agrees confidence for the turn is getting really high. This is the GFS ensembles. Really high confidence there. And look at the darker colors here. That indicates pressure, and that indicates basically that it does see this thing going Cat 2, perhaps, maybe even some models say Cat 3. Look at this. The European ensembles finally starting to come around. Still a mess, but certainly coming around and making that curve as well. This is a big change. If you've been watching my videos over the last week or so, we've been showing this. And look at this. I mean, initially this was barely getting it out of tropical storm strength, if that. Now we've got some going all the way up to Cat 3. We got a lot going up to Cat 3 by the time you get towards Tuesday, Wednesday. So big time changes as far as the intensity forecast goes. The good news is most of this high wind here will occur when it's out over the Atlantic, which means great surf for Puerto Rico, great surf for even the Bahamas, but certainly the east coast of the United States from Florida all the way up will get a pretty good swell from this middle to end and even into next weekend. So that's going to be an issue for that. All right, there's the basically another picture of the most likely arrival of the winds. So Puerto Rico, it's tonight by 8 o'clock. You want your preps done in Puerto Rico by sunset. If you can get them done, that's when you want to get them done by sunset. I'd try and get them done a little bit sooner than that. BVI, USVI, I mean, it's just going to go downhill this afternoon. So you got maybe a couple more hours. Things are just going to get gradually windier and windier, and then we'll start to get some rain bands in there. Rainfall amounts 10 to 12 inches. Some areas could see higher, especially on the southern side of Puerto Rico. There is a tornado threat that goes along with that as well, too. So you want to be keeping an eye out with that. Mudslides, power outages, the whole 9 yards. You know how this goes. All right, this is the GFS model. Just let me show you. You're kind of used to seeing models. This is tomorrow morning, mid-morning, and it's got the thing right over top of Puerto Rico. Okay, you see that there? I mean, that is just basically right there. I think it'll be further on the south side, just a little bit, but not by much. So the north and east side usually is the stronger, has the heaviest wind, heaviest rain, and unfortunately, I think that's what's going to come by Puerto Rico. So certainly 50s and 60s, could see some gusts well into the 70s. Now, this is Sunday night. The GFS really jumps Puerto Rico and comes far to the north. The Hurricane Center forecast brings it up over here. Okay, not over here, but it brings it over here a little bit. You can see the GFS does something like this, right? The Hurricane Center does something like this. All right, so you see where they're diverging right there. So, and then it takes it on out to sea, but it does strengthen it all the way out. Okay, European model. Let's take a look at that. There's Puerto Rico. It stays right on the tip, right near Mayaguez. Rincon's going to get it. And then it does go, see a little jog to the left in between, and that keeps the center out over water quite a bit, which means it's not going to lose much steam at all. And then it makes the turn, kind of brushing the Turks and Caicos there. This is Tuesday night. It's much slower resolution, much slower run than the GFS, which is all the way up here. And the Hurricane Center forecast, by the way, they're a little bit quicker than that model. I wanted to show you what's happening here. Thank goodness for this trough. That is what's coming to pick this thing up. All right, and you can see that. Here's our storm down here. Here's the trough over the Great Lakes. Watch that thing come through. It's going to sync up with this, and it's just going to pull this thing up and out with it. Okay, that's the timing. This is the high that we were watching all week. Where is it? How much of it's going to break down over here, right? You see the high is centered over there, but look at it. See it noses out over here. In fact, let me back up. And this is always the question when you're hurricane forecasting. Here's the center of the high, right? It's out here. But the high extends all the way over here, right? Now, the high's not just going to sit there. We know that. My job is to figure out what is that high going to look like when that storm gets close to the Turks and Caicos and the Bahamas, right? And then here's what, and the models will, give us their idea about it. Watch what happens. Watch the western side of this break down. Let's try it. There it goes. See that? That's not until Tuesday. And so that's why the European model, we're looking at the GFS, the European slows it further down into here because it's waiting for this thing to go. It's going to go up. It could go back like that. I mean, I don't think it will, but that's what happens when these things run into these high pressures. This high pressure sitting here is getting eroded by this trough coming through. The storm, and usually what happens when you get storms turning, they tend to slow down a little bit as they turn, and then they pick back up and get speed. And that's essentially what's going to happen in this case. And it's worked out just so right that this slows its turn coming around the backside of this high, that it has enough time for this to be here, right? And catch it. See it? See it catching it right there? And then it merges it with the front. Boom, 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 boom. It goes on out. High pressure builds back in behind it. So perfect time. We couldn't have asked anything better. The European, very similar, a little bit slower. Look at the Great Lakes. See how it comes further west because that trough's further to the north and slower, but then it does phase it and take it out. And they've actually got another wave coming off of Africa that we can worry about next week. This is Thursday night, by the way. Chance for hurricane. This hurricane probability with the GFS, mainly to the north of the islands. The European says, yeah, most of the strengthening, 75-mile-per-hour winds or higher is going to be north of the islands. All right, that's it, guys. Real fast. Let me see if I got any questions here. I haven't seen anything on there. No, I don't have that turned on yet, but I will get that next time. This is what you want to see. Let's go back here. We are going to, you know what, while I got you here, if you're watching locally, we do expect some pretty decent rain again out there for today. Of course, right? I mean, we've been dealing with that a lot. This is the local forecast model. And you can see how we're dry now, but watch right around 2, 3 o'clock. Well, it's a little bit later, 4 or 5 o'clock. We'll start popping up some showers and storms. So I think you've got the better part of the day, but look at that, especially south of I-4. I mean, we're gonna get a lot of rain out there this afternoon. Tomorrow does look a little bit on the drier side. Okay, guys, that's it. good luck with this storm. I hope you're doing okay in the BVI, the USVI, Puerto Rico. Get ready for it. It's coming through. I wouldn't be surprised if you do get hurricane warnings issued later today. You've got the watch right now. Warnings probably will come up at least for the southern coast. And I would expect hurricane warnings likely for the eastern part of Dominican Republic and even the Turks and Caicos. I'd be watching that as we get going. All right, guys. Hope you have a great rest of the week. And, of course, I'll be tuned in here to give you guys updates as we get going through the next 24